What's up, YouTube? It's time to get the gears in the car. I'm going to start jacking her up, and I'll show you all of the tools and the stuff that I got to put in, and I'll do a step-by-step for this. This would also work if you're just looking to install SRT8 rear end for the 09 to 2010, because I'm not changing axles or anything like that. The SRT pumpkin should fit with my RT axles. At least that's the plan. So let's get started, and I'll show you what I got. Alright guys, so I got the car in the air. Got those wheel chucks, don't ever forget that. Get the wheels off. Got my jack stand set. And the next step is going to be, let's take for a little poke underneath here and show you what's exactly going to happen here. So the next step is I got to take off these, the exhaust pipe here, and what's convenient with this aftermarket Corsa is that I can just take this pipe off. I can leave the mufflers to the mid pipes, and I can leave these back resonators here, because really all I need access to is dropping this rear end here and the axles. So I just need enough room for it to swing down, and so that's why these need to come off, and then that should be enough room to be able to bring the rear end down and be able to hopefully pry these axles out and put them in the new rear end. So I got the rear section of the Corsa exhaust off on both sides. What I forgot is that I'm going to have to take the whole exhaust off because I need to change the rear half of the drive shaft, and that runs right underneath where the rest of the catback exhaust goes. So right under here is where the rear drive shaft connects to the front drive shaft. There's a coupler and or I should say there's like a bearing. And so what I need to do is I need to take this off. I need to drop this brace, and then there's a heat shield. I got to take the heat shield off. So a little more work than I thought on the exhaust. I forgot about that. So let me get that off, and I'll show you the next step. So the Corsa well, I guess it's the X-pipe, or yeah, X-pipe and mufflers are off. Now I need to go underneath, and I need to take off the heat shield. So I have the heat shield out, and the cross brace, I did have to take it off to get the heat shield out. Now I'm going to show you something really interesting that I found under here. This is the bearing that holds the front drive shaft to the rear drive shaft. I don't know if I'm gonna, yeah, there we go. Now take a look. It's crooked. So you have the slot here on this side, and then you have the slot here on this side, and it's actually, instead of being perfectly perpendicular to the edge of, the edge of this transmission tunnel or drive shaft tunnel, you can see it's actually a little cockeyed this way. So this one is pushed all the way that way, and this one's pushed all the way this way, and so it's not perfectly perpendicular with this drive shaft. It's kind of tapered and offset, and I don't know if this is moved because of torque coming from the engine, or if what exactly is going on, or if this is just a bad install from the factory. I don't know what's going on there, but I'm assuming that this is supposed to be perfectly perpendicular to the drive shaft here. So this is really interesting. I mean, part of me says, oh, put it back the way it was, meaning when I put the new one in, that I install it this way where it's slightly cockeyed. Again, you can see the taper there. It's not it's kind of hard to get on. Let's see if I can reposition there. You can see it. Let's see. You can see that that's perfectly perpendicular right there. Look at this area right there. I was just after looking at that carrier bearing, I went to take out the one that came with my back half of the correct drive shaft for the SRT rear end. And as I'm looking at it, I kind of press up on this carrier bearing, and what do I see? I see some daylight through there. Do you see that? Completely ripped. So, because of that, that could be a problem. I'm hoping that when I take the old one, or the one that's on my car off, and I'll inspect it, it's going to be good, hoping, and that I can just reuse it, because this one is completely shot. You can see there, I mean, look at that, it's popping out. Yeah, I'm definitely not putting this on my car. So, I'm going to have to really inspect the one that I have. Hopefully it'll work. I think it's the same carrier bearing. So I'll find out. Let's see where I'm at. Car's jacked up, obviously. I've got the control arms so that the control arms are jacked up. Trying to keep the axles as straight as possible so that when I drop the center section here, you can see I got a wrench on there already. When I drop this, the axle should pivot down and it should give me enough room to kind of wiggle them out, because the whole idea of this is not to actually take the axles out of the car. So I'm not going to pull the axles out here or anything. I'm leaving this all set. Hopefully I'll just be able to wiggle the axles out of the center section. At least that's in the theory from what I've read. And then once I get that out, I'll take out the drive shaft, put in the new half of the drive shaft, inspect the coupler bearing or whatever it's called, center bearing. Hopefully it's okay and I can use it. Otherwise I might be I might run to the parts store, I'm not sure. I've got this is the old drive shaft out, and that's the new drive shaft and back half of the drive shaft. I just wanted to make sure that they're the same length, and I've got some really good news that this carrier bearing still looks good. There's no rips in it. So I believe all I have to do is tap this off very carefully so I don't ruin the rubber on it. But once I get that tapped off, I'll just exchange it onto this one. And then there's a little rubber boot right here that fits over like so, fits over here, and that just covers where this meets up with the front half of the drive shaft. So far things are going good. I'm almost at the point, well actually, now that I have these out, I am at the point of taking the actual differential out. I do want to get this carrier bearing off first, just to make sure that I'm going to be able to reuse it with the new shaft. But things are going pretty smooth so far. I mean, there's a lot of, you can see it's not difficult so far. It's very similar to the headers. Just a lot of stuff to take off. Lots of tools out. I have instructions there from LX forums. That's what I'm using for my install. I've got parts under the car. I've got my exhaust off. So there's the bolts from holding the drive shaft to the differential that I took off to get it off. You have to put your car in neutral. So you can see there, my car's actually on, so I'm going to turn it off now and put it back in park since I got those out. But you have to put it in neutral so you can turn the drive shaft to reach all the bolts. And once I put the new one back in, I'll have to put it in neutral again. But I just want to, it's crazy. Like I said, nothing too hard yet, but definitely time consuming. So I'm about, I think I'm about 2.5 hours in. So I figured this is probably going to be it might even be a multi-day thing. But anyways, I'm going to move on with the, hopefully getting the differential out, and I'll show you the new differential, put them side by side, compare them just like these guys, and we'll go from there. So I ran into a total snafu with this bearing, getting it off the old one. Apparently you can't just get it off with a screwdriver and a hammer. So I had to borrow this bearing puller from AutoZone, so I'm gonna get this old one off. Hopefully it's good and I can reuse it, and then I'll just press it onto the correct rear half of the drive shaft. So let's do this. So that totally worked. Awesome, thank you AutoZone. I'll be returning that for my refund. Here you can see this is mine that came off my car compared to the one I got when I bought my rear half of the drive shaft. This thing is shot, you can see there. Mine is great. It's the rubber still feels good. It's sturdy, but there's no holes, and I'm gonna be able to reuse this. So now I need to find a pipe that fits just the size of this, and hopefully I can press it onto the new drive shaft over there. So I've got the since I got the carrier bearing off of the old drive shaft, I've now installed it onto the new drive shaft, which has the 4-bolt flange on it. There's a better look at it. This will hook up to the SRT rear end, whereas my original drive shaft, as you can see here, this still has the coupler on it, but you can see it's a three bolt flange. So the 4-bolt flange is now all set. This is going to be a little fun to reconnect to the front half of the drive shaft, because there's actually a keyed spline, and see if I can find it. It's right here. You can see, well, I don't know if it's going to be able to focus, but this ridge has a little, there you go. You can see it's a double. And so this will only fit on the front drive shaft one way, so I'm gonna have to go under there with the flashlight really close and make sure I get it lined up, which will help, you know, just make it easier getting it in. But I did luck out on this carrier bearing. It's good. The one that was on my car, no play, no rips, so I got very lucky. So now is on to the fun part, and that will be actually dropping the differential there. So let's get that going. So I'm starting to remove the bolts here. I just want to show you where those are. So you've got one bolt here, and there's another one up here, kind of hard to see. This one, funny enough, is easier to reach than this one, simply because the gas tank's here, and there's a little more room over. You can see the gas tank kind of tapers over there. But I've already removed the, there's a 5/16 Allen or a hex bolt that you remove here that was kind of a pain because it kind of free spins for a while until you get enough weight on it. So that one's out. And then I'll show you. You can see the it moving. So you know this is the differential moving. I'm moving it back and forth with my hand. So once I get these bolts out, I'm going to drop this, drop the differential, and then hopefully these axles will I'll be able to pry them off and get them out, and then it's just repeat that step with the new one. From what I understand, the hardest part about this is putting the new one in and making sure that you don't strip the bolt holes, because it's so hard to get this lined up with it. So that's going to be a fun little exercise, because it's already a pain in the butt to try to get this thing out. So getting it in is going to be a lot harder. So I got the differential down, as you can see here. These bolts you can see how long they are. There you go. So with limited space and trying to get these out, it was I shouldn't say a big pain in the butt, but it took a long time to get those bolts out. So now that I got the differential lowered down, from what I understand, I have to try to pry these axles out, which should be fun. So that's the next step. Hopefully I can get these out. So I got the driver's side axle out, and now it's time to get the passenger side out. Hopefully it'll come out a little easier than this one. This one took a little effort to pry it off, but once it's off, it comes out pretty easily. You just have to lower this down. So take that one off, and then I'll pull this differential out. Success. We got the diff out. So there's the old diff. Here's the new diff. And you can see the axles hanging down there. So what I'll do is I'll get the new diff out, put it on the jack, and then I have to I'm gonna put the passenger side in first, I'm assuming, since I took the driver's side off first. So I'll do the passenger side, it came off last. Put that one in, get this one in, raise it back up, and then the tough part comes where you line up the bolt holes. But so far so good. So I got the old diff out and in the box. I got the new diff on the jack. I'm gonna oil the splines on the axles and hopefully be able to work these puppies in there. And then it's trying to mount this thing. All right, guys. So the new differential is in. These bolts, no fun. No fun at all. Also, what was not fun was getting the axles in. When I tried to get this axle in, and then I wouldn't be able to get the driver's side in. So took that one off, did it the opposite way. Needless to say, back and forth, and then once I got them in, I realized that this flange that is supposed to press onto this axle was not even, and I was really worried that that was going to rub up against this inner seal and cause some issues. So that took some extra time. Had to re-drop the differential, take them back out, which was a pain in the butt because once I got them in, they were in really good, the axles. But I got them out. I hammered the seals back on really good onto the axles. Got the driver's side in, and the passenger side fought me. Went back and forth, but I finally got them both in. They're both in all the way. Everything looks good. These bolts take forever because they're so long. And then this bolt is a really weird bolt here. This one, like, so it's this weird thing where you let the weight of the differential pull on the bolt. That's the only way you can get it back in. Otherwise, it just spins on itself. It's really bizarre. I remember reading about that before I started doing this install, preparing for it, and they said that can be a big pain in the butt. So anyways, now I'm on to the drive shaft. I'm gonna put the coupler on the drive shaft, and then hook the drive shaft up to the propeller there. I gotta make sure I line the splines up to get the shaft in there. So that's the next step. So got everything tidied back. I got the exhaust back on. I've got the differential in there, the coupler, drive shaft, you can see down there. I've got obviously the center bearing, central or carrier bearing tidied up, the heat shield. Like I said, the full exhaust all the way back on. I need to clean this all up. You can see I got grease all over it. This has been by far the hardest thing I've ever done car-wise. I mean, this has been brutal. It's been crazy. I mean, the craziest install I've done of anything. I did headers, I mean, done exhaust, obviously, all those things, and this is 10 times harder than headers. So someone told me this is easier than headers. I completely disagree. So basically, you can see a car's still up in the air. I'm about to put the wheels back on, and I'm gonna level it off. Part of the issue right now is there's a drain plug on the differential that I do not have a tool for, and so that's going to be one of those using the wife's car when she gets home from work, going to AutoZone and praying that they have it, because there's no differential oil in the differential right now. Otherwise, if there was, I'd be pretty much tightening up and ready to call it done. But since I can't put differential oil in it, I can't put it down on the ground, I can't test it out. But once I do that, once I get the differential oil in there, I'll be able to get everything down on the ground. I'm going to use my Predator to set the car to the 323 gears, so that the computer won't freak out. And then it's test drive time, keeping my fingers crossed that I've tightened everything up and done everything correct. I think I have. The only issue that is, and it's not an issue, the only thing that's slightly concerning is how close the bolts are to the differential on the coupler. But I mean, they're the same exact length bolts that came off of the car. I ordered them specifically for the SRT rear end, so it might just be tight tolerances, and I'll be fine. We'll find out. If I get any weird grinding or clicking noises, I'm gonna chalk it up to that, and then it's at this point I'll probably bring it to a shop, because this is yeah, I'm done with this. This is actually day 2. I've kind of split it over 2 days. The first day I worked for about I mean, really a total of like maybe an hour and a half. I ran into the problem of getting that center carrier bearing off of the drive shaft, and so I had to run to AutoZone to get the part for that, which took, that took a couple hours because I got the wrong size one at first and had to go back. And then of course, once I took it off, I had to bring it back to get my refund for borrowing the tool, and then I had to go to Ace Hardware to find. I'll show you. I had to find a pipe that was the correct diameter. Here, it's just PVC, and so basically I had to find a pipe the correct diameter to
be able to push that bearing back onto the end of the drive shaft there. Woo, there you go. Sorry, I got this facing backwards, so it's kind of weird. And so that, between Ace Hardware and AutoZone, took up you know, a couple hours running back and forth. So yeah, hopefully, like I said, everything goes good once I get the differential oil in and I test it. And I'll be able to chalk this one up as maybe my final big mod on the car. At least final big mod that I'm gonna install, because this is one of those where it's I would rather pay someone, I think, to do this than me to do it again. It's been a bear, to tell you the truth. It's been a bear. So anyways, enough of my rambling. As soon as I get that part, when my wife gets home from work, I'm gonna run to AutoZone. Hopefully they'll have it, or Advance, whatever. And I'll get some differential oil in there, drop the car, test it. And hopefully I'll have some good news at the end of this video saying I did it all right and the car is awesome and I love it and it was totally worth it. So let's hope that happens. So I've got the drain plug, and I'm gonna start putting the fresh gear lube in. This is what I was recommended by WaveTrack. So this is what I'm putting in. Stuff was expensive, but it's supposed to be really good. So I've got 2 quarts of it. You basically just pump it into the differential until it starts coming out the top fill tube, so you know that it is, or top fill spout, I should say, you know that it's all in there. So I'm gonna start doing that. We can see spout, or the tube is going up. I don't know if I can get a good angle at it, but there's a fill. Oh, there we go. And I've got this pump, and you just pump it, and it pumps the fluid into the diff. So it's going to pump this whole quart, and then I think this takes a little bit over a quart. It's like a quart, 1.7 quarts. So I'll just be pumping away. And this is how you know when it's filled. So now that it's leaking out like this, I'm going to let it drip out a little bit, and then I'm going to replace the plug. Alright guys, so I have my tuner plugged in. I'm going to go with performance tune. Oh, gotta hit agree here. Okay, turn the ignition on, but don't start the car. Okay, continue. Okay. Nope. Trying not to get my finger in the way here. So my my Hemi Fever custom tune's already on here. So all I'm going to be doing is changing the gear ratio to 3.23, and I should be good to go for the test drive. So this is still loading. All right. So I believe it is quick adjust. Continue. Transmission axle ratio 323. Are you sure? Yes. Turn key to off. Turn key to on. Successfully updated. Cool. That was easy. It's unplugged. It's time to test this out. Wish me luck, guys. I done messed up. I did the installation a couple days ago. 14 long, painful on my back hours, and everything went extremely well and smooth until about 35 miles an hour. And around 35 miles an hour, I started to feel a vibration. It was a vibration in my steering wheel, and I could feel it kind of under my seat. It lasts from 35 miles an hour to about 45 miles an hour. It's not a crazy vibration, but it is concerning. It feels like I have a wheel out of balance. I don't know what it is. I suspect it's the center carrier bearing, which is what goes in between the 2 drive shaft pieces. It's a bearing, and it's got a rubber piece around it that helps with vibration. Everything I bought used. Everything looked to be in good condition when I got it. The carrier bearing turned out to be complete crap.
Okay guys, so that was the differential install. I did want to follow it up with this little piece here where I explain what happened after using that original carrier bearing that came on my car. I did install it, and when I did, I actually ended up installing it perpendicular instead of crooked like it was when I took it off. And so I think what happened there is that well, I know it caused a vibration. I've had not a severe vibration, but enough of a vibration that scared me a little bit when I first took test drove the car. I think it was simply that carrier bearing, the rubber still had memory, and it was, now that it was in a different position, the bearing was not doing its job as well. So here I am 2 years later after the install. The vibration has softened. It's not as bad, and actually I really only noticed it when the car is getting low on gas and the back end is lightened up a little bit. So I finally did get a replacement carrier bearing. So I bought this brand spanking new from Mopar dealer, and I'm going to be installing that now in the spring once it warms up a little bit, and that should completely resolve my vibration issue, I think. So unfortunately the one I got was destroyed, as you saw in the video. I wasn't going to put that on my car, and the one that came off my car was crooked and deformed. So now I finally have a good one. You can see there it's not pushed out on one side like the one was on my car, and this should solve my issue. So other than that, the car's been great. I have no issues whatsoever. It gives me nice acceleration off the line. I'm happy with the differential that's in it, and I really couldn't be happier with it. So for you 09 to 10 guys that want to do this direct swap for the SRT differential, I highly recommend it. It is a very excruciatingly long install. I believe it took me 14 hours, which is crazy. It took me longer to do this than the headers. So whoever said it's easier than the headers was lying. It was tough. It was tough to get those axles in that differential. So it's not easy, but the reward is you have some nice acceleration off the line now. So, and the limited slip that came in my SRT housing is awesome. So with that is the conclusion of the video. Hope you guys enjoyed it. I know it was kind of a long-winded, but I wanted to kind of show every detail and explain some of the things that happened along the way. So there it is. Peace.